Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more. Now, got an interesting one today. We're going to start with, is the moon an artificial satellite?
Made me go, ooh.
Yeah, the reason for this, I've been asked this. I've had people ask me my opinion on it twice in the last week, and it's kind of like, oh, well, that's interesting. There's obviously something in the zeitgeist about it. So I'm going to answer it because I've done a lot of poking about on this one
Okay.
for years. I mean, literally for years. It started with me many, many years ago when I was reading. I mean, it must have been some ancient mythological texts or something like this, but and it was to do with classical mythologies, early aspects of classical mythology and ancient writings. And many of the ancient writers talk about a time before the moon.
Wow.
And that's like, oh, that's interesting. But, at the time in the space I was in, it's mythology. So, it's parked under the curious heading.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and and they talk about a pre-lunar people. They're kind of
Wow.
mentioned in passing, and they've called either the Arcadians or I think it's the Procelines. It's either the Precelines or the Procelines, something like that. So they have a name, and it's in the age, what is called a golden age, the age before the moon.
Huh.
And uh, uh, some years ago, I was reading other stuff, and it came up again, and so I started poking about some more, and I found I've actually got some notes here because there's so much detail around this.
Yeah.
So, um, Colombian Indian culture, excuse me, and they talk about when the moon was not yet in the heavens in their oral histories.
God.
Yeah, I know that's on the other side of the world, as it were. And there's also some ruins in Colombia. And it's very interesting because I've looked at pictures of these ruins and there's no pictures of the carvings on the walls of these ruins, but it's apparently the carvings show show the earliest heavens when the moon wasn't in place, and they show the moon being brought into place and and before the moon that we currently know takes up its place, because there's lots of anomalies around the moon. There's a picture of a much smaller satellite. So it's like we had what you would consider, and we'll talk about this in a moment, what you would consider a normal moon, and it got moved out of the way and our huge big moon brought in. And there are reasons for that. And it just, I mean, this is a rabbit hole. It's just, it's a joy to dive down because there's just so much going on with it. There really is. And the Zulus, I don't know if you're familiar with the Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa. He's dead now, but he did various interviews and things like that with various Western people. And David Icke talks of him quite a lot in some of his books, and he actually did a film with him because he was a Zulu shaman that actually started to speak about some of the so-called secrets, the oral histories of the Zulu people, because he felt it needed to be told what they needed to be told to the wider world at that time. And he got a lot of brickbacks from his own people for doing it. But I mean, all respect to him, it is incredibly interesting, and it, what they have, the Zulu oral histories have to say, really, really contribute to our understanding of alien visitors to the Earth, basically. So, and within the histories of the Zulu nation, they believe that the moon is hollow, and they also talk about it being brought here by, get this, two reptilian brothers.
Wow.
Now, if you're at all attuned into the Anunnaki stories, that should immediately, make your ears twitch up, because the Anunnaki, the two major players in the Anunnaki stories are two brothers called Enlil and Enki. and the Anunnaki are reptilian in nature.
Wow.
You know, they're partially reptilian in nature. So yeah, I mean, it's and the Zulu people, the Zulu stories say it caused a massive cataclysm. Well, it would if you think about, you know, a body like that coming in. So, and their timing, and the timing that that seems to come in other places. I've seen two timings for this happen. Now, my feeling is that if classical writers are writing about it, you know, there's still a memory that's
Yeah.
come from people from a time behind the moon. It's got to be, I say, relatively recent. It's got to be, you know, thousands of years ago, not hundreds of thousands, let alone millions of years ago. And I've seen one timing on it where it's talked about as something that would have happened 5 million years ago.
Okay.
I've heard one, or I've seen one person talk about it, that this came in, this happened as a result of what's called the Electric Wars, which was the end of the first seeding of humanity on this planet. But that was 5 million years ago that happened, and I don't think race memory is lasting that long. So, you know, it goes back a fair way, but certainly not. That was the end of the first seeding. There's been a second seeding that got wiped out as well in between, and then, as I've said before, we're now the third seeding, and I don't think these stories would have lasted that long. To me, it links into the end of Atlantis, which
Okay.
is going around, back. Well, the Colombian Indians talk about 13,000 years ago, and that would more or less come in right, because it was about 9.5, 10,000 years ago that Atlantis finally went down.
Okay.
Whether it was the cause of it or whether it came in after it, you know, I'm still digging it. Some of this I'm still digging into, and you know, but yeah, I'm sharing with you what I've got and where I'm at with it. So,
That's amazing. And
so
so
have
there's
fun with it.
no,
So shall we get to the sciencey bit?
yeah, let's. But well,
Because the sciencey bit itself upholds this, which is, you know, it's not just mythologies, because the moon is an anomaly at every single level.
okay.
It just doesn't fit, you know, whatever the ology is for whoever studies, you know, satellites around planets and things like that. Is it a cosmologist or a
Yeah.
astrologist? Or I don't know, it will be some
Whatever.
ology or
That's
other,
one
won't it?
is. Yeah.
Yeah, whoever it is, you know, there is, you know, moons tend to be no more than a certain size because of gravity pull and things like that. So you know, the size of the planet, the moon can't be too big for the planet, otherwise it just gets pulled into the planet and you know, crashes into the planet and things like this. Now our moon just defies all of those maths at
Huh.
every single level. It is too big for the size of our planet. The diameter of the moon should be, according to the information I have here in my notes, 30 miles wide.
And how wide actually is it?
2,159. That's quite a big difference. It is about 25%
Oh my
the
God.
size of the Earth. So in theory, it should be crashing into the Earth because of gravitational pull and things like that. Yeah, no, isn't. Yeah, work that one out for starters. And also from a weight point of view. So if it's 20, you know, about 25% the size of the Earth, it should, you would think, weigh about 25% the weight of the Earth, but it doesn't. It only weighs 1.2% the weight of the Earth.
Huh.
So yeah, already your brain's scrambled, isn't it?
How do they know? I mean, how do you weigh the moon?
Oh, God knows they have mass times velocity, you know, whatever it is. Somebody out there knows. It's beyond my pay grade to work that kind of stuff
And
out.
so, hence the theory that it's hollow, perhaps, because it's massive but not
Yeah,
heavy enough.
yeah.
So there's
Well, yeah, but there's more that adds to the hollow. There's a lot more that adds to the hollow. So
okay.
yeah, it's not just the Zulus saying this. There's lots of scientists saying it as well. Another major anomaly of it is that it doesn't rotate around our equator. Now, most moons go around the equator of the planet that they're attached to. Ours has a 5% elliptical tilt to its orbit.
Right.
And it spins at exactly the same rate as the Earth, which means it only ever shows one side to us. Most moons spin at a different rate to the planet they're going round. So eventually all sides of it are seen by the planet. Ours doesn't, it's stationary. For, to all intents and purposes, it matches our planet and it's stationary, like it was an observation post or something.
Huh.
Yeah, so there's a dark side of the moon we never see. And there's interesting things that go on there. So, and it's exactly now, and this is another, well, there's sort of some really great information here. It's exactly the right size to block the sun during an eclipse. Now, again, we never think of this because, we're born, it's in the skies, eclipses happen, we learn about them from a child upwards, and we just take it for granted. But the moon is exactly the right size to block out the sun when there's an eclipse.
Okay.
And it's at exactly the right location from Earth to be able to do that. And then it goes on. Apparently the statistical chances of that happening are minuscule.
Of course.
Minuscule.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say it's not until you think about it that you start to think, God, yeah, that is weird. The sun is 400 times the size of the moon.
So bigger.
Yeah. Oh, hang on, let me just make sure I've got this right. Right. The sun is 400 times the size of the moon and 400 times further from the Earth than the moon is.
Right.
So that in itself is, well, that's a bit of a coincidence, isn't it, that those two figures are the same? Then you go on to the Earth to the moon. The size of the Earth to the moon is 108 times the size of the moon. So the size of the moon, the spacing from the moon to the Earth is 108 times the size of the moon.
Right.
The mileage.
Yeah.
And exactly that, the Earth to the sun is exactly 108 times, a multiple times 108 again. So again, that maths is curiously balanced, which is very bizarre. And then we come to the aging of it, because of course they've been up there, they've got a load of space stuff, lunar dust, and they've also got lunar rocks. So they've however it is, they kind of come up with ages. They've come up with an age of 5.3 billion years for the moon.
Okay.
Which is very, very strange, because the Earth, the age of the Earth is 4.6 billion years. So that's like saying, well, the moon was here before the Earth was.
But the stories say otherwise.
Absolutely. And even more interesting is you've got the lunar rocks being 5.3 billion years old, but you have the lunar dust being 1 billion years older than that. So 6.3 billion years for the lunar dust, which theoretically should have come from the wearing down of the lunar rocks.
So it should be.
But it's 1 billion years older. I mean, all of this, it's kind of like, you've just got a big question mark above your head going,
Absolutely.
It's brilliant, isn't it? I love mysteries like these, because I love the fact there aren't answers, because we try to tie and pin everything down, and the universe is so amazing and so wonderful, and I love things that lead you deeper into the mystery the whole time.
And so nobody has yet sort of come up with a theory or an idea or a conspiracy or
Yeah,
anything yet.
well, yeah, I'll tell you about what I've discovered about it from the point of view of Earth histories and things like that in a minute. But yeah, let's just finish off getting through these. Hollow on the inside. When a meteor strikes it, it rings like a bell.
Ooh, how do we know that?
So, well, we know that because we have instruments on the moon now that measure this. So when it gets meteor strikes relatively frequently, and it rings like a bell. And we also know from the Apollo landings, where these, well, whatever the machines are, they measure reverberation with or whatever. We know from the Apollo landings when the Apollo capsules either landed or, I mean, when they took off, they dropped a stage onto the moon, didn't they, of spent fuel cells, I would have thought, or whatever. They also picked up the same reverberations. And in the first case, it rang for over an hour. But they have had one recording where something, heavier fell, where it reverberated, rang like a bell for over 3 hours.
When something heavy hit it?
Yeah. And that only happens if it's hollow.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And this is all scientifically measured?
Yeah.
Why don't we hear about this stuff?
Well, yeah, because they don't want you to, because it makes you ask questions. And as soon as you start asking questions, their stories start falling apart. So they really don't want you knowing this, which is why I love it so much. Bit wicked, really, isn't it? But it gets even stranger, because they've also found, in amongst the lunar rock selections and things they brought back, they've found rust-proof iron that isn't known on the Earth.
Wow.
And some might say, oh, that's because there's no atmosphere on the moon. But actually, in the moon landings, and this could either be because they were totally fake or because there is something else going on the moon. So, I'll leave it up to you to interpret this one. But there are two things well, there are three things actually that point to the fact that there might be atmosphere on the moon, or at least some kind of atmosphere on the moon. And one is that when the astronauts planted a flag in the moon, it was seen to wave somewhat in a breeze. You need an atmosphere for a breeze.
Yeah.
Apparently, this was so disconcerting that the next time they took a flag with them, it was starched. Can't make it up, can you? But also moon dust, when they do their, moon leaps, it puffs up dust. The dust drifts. It shouldn't drift unless there's atmosphere. It should just clump and fall back eventually. And there have been clouds seen on the moon. I mean, astronomers watching have seen clouds on the moon.
It sort of within sight of the moon, if you were
Yeah. Oh, that's not the least of what they've seen as well. So let's get rust-proof iron, but also other metals not found in nature have been found in moon rock, not natural. So they're not earth metals that are found on our planet at all. They are
new.
they are you know how, again, I'm not a metallurgist, but when you combine two metals, it makes alloys and things like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
How fascinating.
Very clever moon, isn't it? Very clever moon. And the depth of the craters, there's stuff going on with the craters. I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail, because we could spend a lot of time on that. But the depth of the craters isn't just about it is obviously when meteors hit, but some of the meteors, because of the size of the crater, the depth of the crater for something come wanging in out from outer space should be much deeper than they actually are. The
Okay.
craters, the meteorite craters, are shallower than they should be for the speed of the impact that goes into them, which suggests that there's a hard shell casing that is protective. And the meteor can go so far and no further. And one of the astronaut, excursions to the moon actually went into one of the craters and drilled down.
Right.
And shavings of a metal, which would seem to be titanium or have titanium in it, was seen to come out of the drill hole.
Wow.
Which again, suggests this very hard shell casing. Any more interesting stuff? Oh yes, the moon rocks are magnetized. They have a magnetic, can measure a magnetic field on them, yet there is no magnetic field on the moon.
Wow.
Which is just another question. Oh, and moonquakes. I love this one. There are moonquakes. Again, they're little graphs and things on the moon measure this. There are moonquakes that happen on the moon. I don't think any of us are too surprised by that. We've heard of moonquakes. But what we probably haven't heard of is that they happen on a regular schedule.
Oh my
So
goodness.
4 o'clock every day, just hang on to the crockery. We're having another moonquake. And it always registers the same intensity.
Huh.
That's about the size of it, isn't it? I mean, so there's a lot of other stuff. I've got a list here of some of the things. There's sightings, some amazing sightings from not just astronomers, but from the astronauts who went on the moon. Somebody called Dr. Frank Harris, he observed a black body on the surface of the moon through his telescope, 250 miles long and 50 miles wide. No explanation for it. Clouds and lightning have been observed passing over the face of the moon, which would seem to indicate that there are storms. Strange moving shadows and objects and spire-like structures thousands of feet high have been seen. A huge boulder with tracks behind it coming from inside a crater and moving up to the rim have been documented.
Wow.
There's a crater on the moon called Luna, Luna, and that crater has shrunk in the time that it's been observed from being 6 miles in diameter to only 1.5 miles in diameter. No explanation as to how that happened. There are hill effects in craters that appear and disappear in hours. So it's like a part of the crater bulges and then goes back down in again. Yeah. Over 800 substantiated observations made by scientists, not tin hat wearers, scientists, of blinking and flashing lights on the moon. NASA photographs indicating several large pyramid structures. All of this stuff all of it gets hushed up. Strange rifts in the surface of the moon with entrances that show, there's the outlines of massive girders and machinery and big blocks of metal that can be seen. Tears in the surface revealing massive interior plumbing. So like if this was, think of it as the exterior of a hollowed out shell of a spaceship or something. And think about how all of the gubbins would go into this hollowed out shell and then the living space in the middle, where there's been tears or rips or something that's got through. There's the signs of something. And professional astronomers are discouraged from speaking about anything they see like that on the moon. It's just kind of like, okay, you saw it, but we don't talk about it. Isn't that
Wow.
interesting? And then, I mean, there's all sorts of astronaut. I mean, you can read about these anywhere. The astronauts, the Apollo astronauts, actually saw UFOs and things like this leaving craters. One of them, when he was in the orbiting capsule, and a UFO came up alongside. Stuff like that. But again, I mean, they actually, the story is that the astronauts and Houston, that's it. It developed a code for when a UFO or something was spotted on the rim of a crater or flying overhead or whatever. They used this particular code word and they shut down communication until it was over, so that it was, and of course it was just, oh, the lines dropped. The lines dropped to the moon, yeah. And then it,
Wow.
UFO passes over and communication resumes, and those there are quite a few of those stories.
Utterly fascinating. So what are we saying, Sarah, that the moon isn't what it perhaps appears to be?
The moon isn't what it appears to be, or what we're told it is at all. It is not organic. It does not have consciousness. In the way that the Earth is a conscious being, the sun is a conscious being, the moon is not. It's inorganic. It is effectively designed, you could call it a spacecraft or something, that was brought into place, and it would have been brought in by traction beams or something like that. It all sounds very Star Trek, but this isn't. Well, think Death Star from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because actually there are two big battle stars which are very similar to the Death Star from Star Wars, battleships called Nibiru, which some people think is a planet, but it's a huge, massive spheroid battleship. And there's another one called Wormwood, and Nibiru and Wormwood kind of work in a kind of orbit, one balancing the. That's a whole nother story. But the moon is linked into it. It's part of a mechanism, observational mechanism for feeding information about what's going on the planet back to other levels, shall we say, and other beings in other dimensions. But that's a whole other story. We could talk about that separately at some time. So yeah, there's I mean, there's so much more I could say, and we've probably gone on a long time already. But from my understanding of it and what I've come to see from the histories is that I think it was very deliberately brought in as a control mechanism. It was parked in the orbit it's in, for a variety of reasons. It caused massive cataclysms, as you would expect it to. A body of that size being brought in close to the planet, it caused massive cataclysms, not least of which was this massive flood, which may well have been the end of Atlantis. And is one of just several floods that the Bible records. That there have been several big floods, but this is one of the major ones. So it may well have been, the final. Atlantis fell in 3 phases, and this bringing in the moon may well have been the final nail in the coffin for Atlantis. It is part of what is called the beast machine. I've talked separately about the beast machine at times. It's a very nasty AI piece of a gross piece of machinery, which is running reversal energies, and it's part of a big system. It's linked into the beast, a system called the gravitron, which sits around controlling our magnetic fields and effectively putting a control mechanism in a gravitational control mechanism between the moon, the earth, and the sun, and that the moon has been used as the mechanism to effectively tilt the earth off an upright. You know, the earth has this 23-degree tilt, tilts the earth off its upright axis, which effectively breaks, there's an energetic structure within the light body of the earth called the staff, which should be the vertical axis, and so it's broken the staff, which again, it's part of the horrors that have been done to the planetary light body that have had to be put together. Yeah, so there's this massive gravitational harness. It affects the magnetics of the earth, and it also affects the water element.
Yeah.
And now we know that because of the tides. It's brought the tides in. Without the moon being where it is, we wouldn't have tides. Apparently, this constant sloshing of the water affects it at a molecular level. And at the pre-matter level, it changes the makeup of water. So what we call water, H2O, at the 3D level that we've got as a result of the moon, if the moon wasn't there and doing what it's doing, we would have something, a molecule called H2O2N3. That would be our water molecule, which is much more of a structured molecule, which is much healthier for us, much more hydrating, etc., etc., etc. But the water molecule we have is very easily imprinted. Now, we know that, you know, how easy it is to imprint water with messages. So we are, you know, they say 75% water, but apparently if you include the water element that's inside our cells, we're nearer 98, 99% water. Much easier to imprint this damaged water with messages than if we're
That's made me sneeze.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, it's that, you know, it's part of the control mechanism for the planet. Also, I mean, it's a monitoring station, it's sending messages. I mean, it's not a one-trick pony, it's doing all sorts of things. It affects female cycles, again, because of this, you know, push me, pull you. So what it actually did was, women up until that stage had control of their reproductive cycles, so they would choose when they wanted children. But it pulled this all out of whack until we're in this cycle now that is linked to the cycles of the moon. And as a consequence of that, you know, we no longer have a say about when we get pregnant. So that caused a lot more children to be born. Now, why would they want that? Well, part of that is yum, yum, yum.
Wow.
There's a lot of child sacrifice. If you added up all of the children that have been sacrificed to these bloody beings over the years, it would be beyond horrendous. A child's soul is pure. They love that energy. Sacrificing a child, eating a child. I mean, we think it doesn't happen. It does. It's so dark. It's so dark. So, you know, it's a plentiful supply at that rate. If women
Lose control of the
lose
cycle.
control, and you know, it keeps. I mean, it's like breeding rabbits.
So, Sarah, where does this leave the so many of the spiritual community that follow the moon cycles and
Yeah,
this
well, you know, we've been living in a lunar matrix. You've heard me talk about the lunar matrix for a very long
okay.
time, and it's this imposed. You know, when the moon was brought in, it's this whole field. You know, at so many levels, electromagnetic fields, reversed energy fields that have been imposed on us through the broadcast. The moon is a transmission statement It's enabled what are called the nets to go up around the planet. It's enabled the black cube system to go in something called the black cube system, which is an energy harvesting system. And that's linked in between the harvesting stations on Earth, like, you know, the black cube of Mecca and things like this, you know, big cathedrals, all sorts of sites around the world. So it links from Earth to the moon to Saturn.
Wow.
Usually you find in these things there's 3 points, that they use 3 points to anchor it. There's something called the red wave, or the red cube mechanism, which is another kind of soul harvesting abortion, basically. You know, and it's used as an anchor point and a broadcast point to set up. It's like, you know, you've got your BBC broadcast station sending stuff out over the airways. It's got to come from somewhere, and the moon has been, you know, one of the major control points for that.
And so
It's
those
floating up above us, and he's, you know, constantly eyeing the planet.
And so those of us that have that connection, because I mean, I know loads of people that have a very strong affinity to the moon.
And it is, I mean, it's particularly strong in the female because of the, you know, the
Yes.
lunar cycles.
So we need to be mindful or wary of it,
We
Sarah?
need to be very mindful of it, and we need to be mindful of the difference between you see, again, there's anomalies here because there are 13 moons a year, and
Yeah.
we only have 12 months and things like that. So you know, again, we've been messed with. Even that level of things has been messed up with. But yes, we need to be very careful at that level. I'm told by the Guardian forces that the broadcasts that the lunar matrix has been sending out via the moon have been stopped now. That part,
Okay.
I mean, I think I've spoken to you about the lunar matrix being taken down. The lunar matrix is very complex, and I'm still putting together aspects of it. There's a lot of it I see and understand. There are other aspects I'm still uncovering, but the lunar matrix has been ruling us, literally ruling the airwaves, shall we say, for a long time. It's had control of the feminine force of the planet, but it's been dark feminine. It's the dark mother, not the true mother, not the true cosmic mother. And by, you know, by breaking the staff, they broke the back of the cosmic mother.
Okay.
Staff is the feminine energy running through the planet. So by putting the tilt in, they broke the staff, which allowed them to introduce the dark mother energies. So the dark feminine has had control of this planet through the lunar matrix.
So is there any good news on the horizon that
Yeah, well,
the
the good news
writing is coming?
the good news is the staff is back under Guardian control and being rebuilt, if it hasn't already. And
Okay.
in fact, my understanding is that the staff in its proper vertical position is back in place because the divine mother energies are well, they're not just anchoring back, they're back full flood now. The lunar broadcasts have been shut off. So I'm talking about what has been.
Oh, good.
And where we are now, divine mother or the divine feminine, or however you want to phrase it, is moving back into control and bringing her energies back fully online into the planet. And we're way into that now.
I feel that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
noticed of late.
So it's just kind of like we're waking from a bad dream, and we've just got to remember, you know, what's the true mother, what are the true feminine energies, and tune back into that. Not get so hung up on the lunar aspects. We're moving back into the solar feminine, the solar masculine, not the lunar feminine. We're moving back from a lunar zodiac into a solar zodiac, and so on and so forth. It's a shift. It's a massive shift, part of this massive shift we're in.
And it's all shifting for the good now.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's good news. That feels like a great place to kind of like
Yeah,
conclude it,
it
doesn't it?
is. As I say, it was a bad dream.
Wow.
Like Bobby in Dallas, and I'm showing my age there. It was
Oh, you and
just
me
a bad
both. I'm
dream.
still a kid. Well, that was a fascinating, roll around with that subject.
Yeah, and there's a lot more there's a lot more detail and a lot more information. But I mean, this is a great rabbit hole to dive down, and
Isn't it
if
just?
you want
Oh,
to look
great.
somewhere, because there's lots of sciencey stuff that backs this up as well. And I say the astronauts and all sorts, of course, NASA is trying to hush it all up, and
Of course.
the establishment and orthodox science and things is just trying to pretend none of this is happening. But yeah, it's well out there now.
How exciting. Thank you
So
so
is the moon
much.
an artificial satellite? Yes, it is.
There we go. Question answered. So, Sarah, that's great. I mean, this was a question that was asked within the YouTube channel, or just from within your community?
Just within my community. Yeah.
And so those of us listening, do ask questions of Sarah. She's very up for answering even the strangest of things that people are putting forward. So yeah, go ahead and ask any questions that you would like to know the answer to. Thank you, Sarah.
Well, thank you, Wendy, and thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, we'll be back with something more next time. Bye.